So first steps, when intended parents come to us, oftentimes they're inquiring about a specific donor on our agency. Once they reach out to us, we'll set up a consultation and we learn more about what's important to them, what are the non-negotiables, is there anything they're not looking for in a donor profile or things that are really important. Some parents like to look through our database at their own time, at their own pace and see what's available, while others we can put together like a curated list based on what they're looking for. Once they've identified a potential donor, one of the first things that we do is send the profile and applicable records, if possible, over to the parent's clinic for review. So if the clinic reviews and says this looks like a great donor, we just think that helps give the parents peace of mind knowing that they can move forward. Yeah. Next step, so once we have an official match, so I guess we have to go back to the donor.
Yeah. Make sure she's available.
Make sure she's
willing.
available. Her compensation, we confirm her compensation, her willingness to travel. So most cycles aren't local to the clinic.
Right.
So we have travel involved there. So we need to make sure that we know what her availability looks like over the next few months before starting the cycle. So there's no unexpected surprises, which happens. Some matching. So we're through matching, screening. Do you want to talk about screening?
Yeah. So the donor screening process usually involves like an initial overnight visit for a donor day medical evaluation. She's seen by the doctor, ultrasound, lab work, so blood draw, urine sample, FDA testing. Some clinics require a psych evaluation on site. Others, we can schedule that ahead of time remotely. Injection training usually happens. You sign consents with the clinic. And it's an opportunity for donors to ask all of the questions they have about the process, because while we go over the process with them and try to lay it out as clearly as possible, they inevitably come up with questions when they're like on site and this is becoming a reality and they know they're taking injections for 14 days. And
What about with the genetic testing? What are they looking for in those genetic panels?
Yeah. So genetic testing is a big part of the screening process. You generally don't want a matching carrier trait. So if the sperm provider has a positive carrier trait, you want to make sure the donor is negative. Otherwise you have a higher likelihood of passing on that genetic carrier disease, and will then be disqualified unless you sign a waiver saying I'll chance it, which is some parents do, but
really, it's really uncommon. But I think with advances in PGTA testing, we see exceptions made sometimes. But I think we definitely encourage parents, and even if we're looking at a repeat donor, when we're looking at matches, I know you do this for parents all the time. Is you're like, send me your genetic report, and I'll make sure I'm not sending you anyone who you would have.
I feel like I'm a genetic counselor some days.
Yes, you just wear many hats. So after screening. Results from screening take 3 to 4 weeks sometimes. And the big piece of that is the genetics. It takes a little bit to get those back. Once we get clearance on the medical evaluation, we get medical clearance, then we move on to legal. Can you talk about why it's so important that we have separate representation for legal?
It's important for the donor and the intended parents to have separate legal representation so that one doesn't feel like they're being coerced, obviously, into something that they don't agree with. So, the intended parents retain their attorney. We help the donor retain an attorney, and essentially the attorneys draft up the agreement and then review it with each of their clients to make sure they feel comfortable with all of the pieces that go with egg donation. The big one being embryo disposition with any leftover embryos. So what can the parents do and what can they not do with leftover embryos?
We just talked about that this week because it comes up, and I think that's the one thing that I see in legal where most donors have a strong reaction to is finding out what if there are unused embryos, what happens to them, and oftentimes I see a strong reaction. So I think we do a good job of talking to the donors beforehand, of letting them know what the options are. And making sure that they're on the same page with the intended parent, so we don't have any issues at that point. So once we have legal clearance, then we're on to the cycle stage. So medical clearance, legal clearance, we go back to the clinic and let them know that we're ready, and the clinic will not proceed without the clearances from legal and medical. And then once we have a calendar in place, they'll look at where the donor is in her cycle. They'll look at her availability and the parents' timeline. If that's, sometimes we have a fresh transfer. More often than not, we're doing frozen because we do testing, but they'll look at the availability, and the donor actually starts stimulation at home. So let's say most cycles involve travel. So let's say the donor's home, we do like a baseline ultrasound, she starts injections. The parents' clinic will oversee this process. So there's always someone checking in to make sure that she's taken care of, her hormone levels are within appropriate range, and she's responding appropriately to the medication. Right. So once she is taking the injections, our team will help kind of monitor her during that time. We'll set up the appointments and get the results to the parents' clinic. And then the clinic is really good about updating intended parents, letting them know how progress is going so they know what to expect, or kind of how things are going for the retrieval. Now, a big thing for donors, and we do this at matching, is making sure that they're available for the retrieval week. So once they start taking stimulation medication, they'll be traveling out to the parents' clinic for anywhere from 7 to 10 days. Yeah. Sometimes more. We see some donors who just need a few extra days, so making sure we know what their availability looks like on either end. But they travel out to the parents' clinic. The parents' doctor will get to review her as we lead up to the retrieval. Mm-hmm. And then once the retrieval takes place, she returns home about 24 hours later, and she has a companion with her, so she isn't kind of navigating a city on her own, and she has someone there for her the day of the retrieval. So that's kind of a high-level overview of the donor process, but the cycle process. But there's always nuances with each case. Yeah.